Forget everything you thought you knew about Westerns. The 1970s didn't just bury the genre. They resurrected it, twisted it, and dragged it through the dirt until nothing looked the same. Call them neo-Westerns. Call them revisionist. Call them the weirdest outlaws in movie history. These films rewrote the rules with grit, cynicism, and wild creativity. How many of these wild rides did you actually catch? Or did they slip right past you? Saddle up, because these 18 neo-Westerns are ones you probably missed. Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, 1974. Sam Peckinpah never made movies for the faint of heart, but Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia might be his meanest, most nihilistic work. Set in a sweaty, contemporary Mexico, this is the anti-Western to end all anti-Westerns. Warren Oates plays Benny, a washed-up bar pianist who stumbles into a brutal hunt for a severed head worth a fortune. The story starts with a classic Western bounty setup, but ditches horses for battered Chevrolets, dusty cantinas, and machine guns. The real twist? There are no heroes, just desperate people clawing at each other for survival. Peckinpah shreds the old code of honor, replacing it with a hopeless, gritty realism that feels more at home in a modern crime thriller. The film was despised by critics on release, but it's since become a cult favorite, praised for its rawness and its refusal to give you anyone to root for. If you think the West died with John Wayne, watch this. The wilderness just got a lot darker. The Hired Hand, 1971. Peter Fonda's The Hired Hand is what happens when the counterculture decides to reinvent the Western. Fonda plays a weary drifter who returns to the wife and daughter he abandoned years earlier, hoping for redemption. It sounds familiar, but everything about this film feels fresh. Dreamy visuals, long silences, a drifting pace that matches the aimless search for meaning. This is the Western as an existential poem, with breathtaking cinematography and a haunting Bruce Langhorne score. Instead of outlaws and shootouts, you get men haunted by regret, landscapes that feel like memories, and the ache of second chances slipping away. Critics called it slow and strange in the 70s, but today it stands as a proto-neo-Western masterpiece, turning the American frontier into a canvas for loneliness and longing. It's a story of forgiveness wrapped in dust and regret, perfect for anyone tired of the usual gunslinger cliches. If you missed it, you missed one of the decade's quietest revolutions. Rancho Deluxe, 1975. If you ever wondered what would happen if a Western got high and started laughing at itself, Rancho Deluxe is your answer. Set in 1970s Montana, this satirical neo-Western stars Jeff Bridges and Sam Waterston as two modern-day cattle rustlers who trade horses and six-shooters for pickup trucks and chainsaws. In Perry's world, the West is alive, but just barely. Ranchers are more likely to play golf than ride the range, and the only thing tougher than the land is making the mortgage payment. Director Frank Perry pokes fun at the entire cowboy mythos, crafting a comedy that's equal parts character study and sly farewell to the Old West. Instead of shootouts and heroics, you get bar fights over bad investments and standoffs with stoners. The film's laid-back attitude and wry, tongue-in-cheek humor set it miles apart from the brooding revisionist westerns of the era. Critics didn't know what to make of it back then, but Rancho Deluxe has become a cult favorite for those who like their westerns, irreverent, offbeat, and just a little bit absurd. If you're tired of the same old gunslinger drama, this is your sleeper hit, an ode to the West's strangest last stand. Ozannas Raid, 1972. Here's a Western that drags the myth of the noble frontier straight through the mud. Ozannas Raid, directed by Robert Aldrich, is a raw, unsparing tale about violence and survival at the edge of so-called civilization. Burt Lancaster plays an aging Army scout, charged with tracking down an Apache war chief whose latest raid has left the Arizona desert soaked in blood. But don't expect heroics. This is a film where brutality reigns and the lines between good and evil are hopelessly blurred. What makes it truly neo-Western is its relentless realism, moral ambiguity, and how it mirrors the Vietnam-era's anxieties, asking hard questions about who the real savages are. The cavalry's methods are often as cruel as the raiders, and the innocent pay the highest price. Released when America was questioning everything about war and authority, this film serves a harsh truth. Maybe the West was never really won. Maybe it was just another battlefield. Ozannas Raid isn't an easy watch, but it's unforgettable. Decades later, its harsh lessons still sting, proving the frontier's violence was never just black and white. The Missouri Breaks, 1976. Take two Hollywood legends, Marlon Brando and Jack Nicholson, mix in a screenplay that gleefully demolishes every Western cliché, and you get The Missouri Breaks. Set in Montana at the turn of the century, this is less a classic Western than a surreal meditation on the death of the cowboy myth. Nicholson plays a rustler with his own code, but it's Brando who steals the spotlight as a regulator, so eccentric he could only exist in a film that's rewriting the genre's rules. His performance veers wildly between dark comedy and pure menace, making every scene unpredictable. Director Arthur Penn paints the landscape as wide and lonely, emphasizing a world that's slipping away, where violence is messy, justice is relative, and everyone's motives are murky. There are no true heroes or villains, only lost souls trying to outlast the end of their era. Critics didn't know what to make of it in 1976, but today, The Missouri Breaks stands as a bold, genre-bending neo-Western, obsessed with endings, identity, and the unsettling truth that the West never really changes. Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, 1973. Sam Peckinpah strikes again, this time turning the legend of Billy the Kid into a mournful, blood-soaked elegy for the Old West. James Coburn plays Pat Garrett, a former outlaw turned lawman tasked with hunting down his old friend, Billy. Bob Dylan's iconic soundtrack adds a ghostly edge to the endless betrayals and shifting loyalties. What makes it neo-Western? The film's obsession with change and loss, its focus on the collapse of friendships and values as the frontier fades. There are no simple showdowns, just long, desperate chases and an overwhelming sense that everyone's time is running out. The violence is shocking, but so is the quiet. Scenes drag out, characters look lost, and you start to wonder if the real villain is history itself. Initially dismissed by critics, Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid is now hailed as a haunting milestone in the transformation of the Western. The Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean, 1972. Only in the early 1970s could you get a Western this gleefully unhinged. Directed by John Huston and starring Paul Newman at his most roguishly charming, The Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean isn't your typical frontier tale. Instead, it's an epic tall tale, a black comedy about the self-declared law west of the Pecos, a man who literally builds his own kingdom in a patch of Texas no one else wanted. Newman's Roy Bean dispenses justice with a mix of violence and bizarre whimsy, presiding over a ramshackle courtroom saloon packed with drunks, outlaws, and dreamers. The film swings wildly between slapstick, violence, and surprisingly poignant moments, never letting you get comfortable in one mood for long. Huston fills the story with oddball supporting characters, including a pet bear and a legendary cameo by Ava Gardner, and uses Roy Bean's obsessions, especially his infatuation with a music hall singer named Lily Langtry, as a lens for the craziness of the West itself. It's both a satire of the great man myth and a loving send-up of Western folklore. While critics were divided on its freewheeling tone, there's no denying its originality. Judge Roy Bean's wild, lawless frontier feels strangely familiar. A chaotic place where justice is what you say it is, and anyone can be king for a while. Pocket Money, 1972. By the 1970s, the mythic cowboy had run straight into the brick wall of modern life, and nowhere is that collision funnier or sadder than in Pocket Money. Paul Newman and Lee Marvin, two screen legends who once defined cool, now play washed-up cattlemen stuck hustling for scraps in a West that's moved on without them. Instead of dusty duels or epic cattle drives, you get border-crossing paperwork, sleazy businessmen, and a world where the only thing tougher than the landscape is getting paid on time. Director Stuart Rosenberg treats their misadventures with a dry wit and quiet melancholy, showing how the men who once tamed the frontier are now just struggling to keep their boots dry. The chemistry between Newman and Marvin is undeniable. They bicker, stumble, and scrape by with a kind of bruised dignity that's impossible not to root for. But beneath the laughs and oddball schemes lies something deeply neo-Western, a sense that the West is now about survival, not glory, and that even legends can wind up broke and forgotten. Pocket money turns the cowboy myth inside out and leaves you wondering if maybe, just maybe, the real adventure is learning how to get by. McCabe and Mrs Miller, 1971. Robert Altman's McCabe and Mrs Miller is the anti-Western that changed the game forever. Forget everything you know about gunfights and glory. This is the West as a place of mud, rain, and heartbreak. Warren Beatty stars as the gambler McCabe, drifting into a bleak mining town to open a brothel, only to cross paths with Julie Christie's Mrs Miller, a pragmatic madam with a mind as sharp as her tongue. What unfolds isn't a romance, but a slow, somber dance between two survivors carving out a piece of the world, even as bigger forces close in. Altman shoots the film in a dreamy haze with overlapping dialogue and Leonard Cohen songs that feel like prayers for lost souls. Violence, when it comes, is sudden, awkward, and devastating, not heroic. Critics call this a revisionist Western, but it's really a blueprint for the neo-Western. Old rules don't apply, and there are no easy answers. The film's quiet, relentless sense of loss, and its refusal to mythologize anything make it a haunting standout, one that lingers like a ghost long after the credits roll. The Outlaw, Josie Wales, 1976. Clint Eastwood's The Outlaw. Josie Wales may start as a tale of revenge, but it quickly morphs into something far more complex, a gritty odyssey through the ruins of the American dream. Josie, played by Eastwood with his trademark stoicism, is a Missouri farmer whose family is murdered by Union soldiers during the Civil War. Swearing vengeance, he joins a band of guerrillas and becomes a wanted man. But as he flees across the West, Josie doesn't just collect scars. He gathers a motley crew of lost souls, a Cherokee chief, a young Navajo woman, a wounded settler, and even a dog. Instead of the lone wolf archetype, you get a reluctant leader forging a patchwork family from the shattered pieces of the frontier. What makes this film neo-Western? It's the rejection of simple heroism and the embrace of moral ambiguity. Violence is everywhere, but so is the longing for peace. Eastwood directs with a keen eye for both action and melancholy, creating a world where forgiveness is as hard-won as any victory. By the end, the West feels less like a place and more like a state of mind, haunted, hopeful, and never really home. Bad Company, 1972. In Bad Company, the West isn't a land of promise. It's a battlefield for the lost and the damned. Jeff Bridges leads a ragtag band of teenage runaways, dodging both the law and the draft in a Civil War-era wasteland that feels eerily contemporary. These aren't your John Wayne heroes. They're outcasts, thieves, and dreamers, scraping by on luck and desperation. Director Robert Benton ditches the mythic iconography for something grittier and more intimate. There are no soaring vistas or heroic showdowns here, just bleak prairies, filthy clothes, and the constant threat of violence. What makes it neo-Western? The film's refusal to sugarcoat anything. Every decision is a gamble, every alliance is suspect, and the only certainty is that innocence won't last long. The humor is dry, the violence is sudden, and the sense of doom is palpable. Bad Company strips the Western down to its bare bones, exposing the fear, hunger, and moral ambiguity at the genre's core. It's a coming-of-age story where growing up means realizing that sometimes survival is the only victory. Lawman, 1971. Lawman throws you into a moral minefield where the badge is as dangerous as the gun. Burt Lancaster is Jared Maddox, a lawman so uncompromising he's practically a force of nature. When a group of drunken cowboys kill an innocent man, Maddox rides into the town of Sabbath to bring the culprits to justice, no matter who gets in his way. What unfolds is less a tale of good versus evil, and more a meditation on power, pride, and the thin line between law and vengeance. Director Michael Winner builds tension with every step, as Maddox's quest alienates the townsfolk, the local sheriff, and even himself. There's no glory in these gunfights, only collateral damage and growing doubt. What makes this a neo-Western? Its refusal to take sides, and its relentless deconstruction of heroism. By the end, you're left wondering if order is really worth the cost, or if the West was ever about justice at all. Lawman is a slow-burn standoff where everyone loses, and that's what makes it unforgettable. The Culpeper Cattle Company, 1972. Cowboy movies don't get much grittier than the Culpeper Cattle Co-Cos, a film that rips the varnish off the Western myth and shows the frontier for what it really was: unforgiving, filthy, and heartbreakingly real. Gary Grimes stars as a starry-eyed teen desperate to join a cattle drive, only to find that cowboy life is nothing like the dime novels promised. Instead of glory, he gets blisters, boredom, and blood. Director Dick Richards shoots with documentary-style realism, dust, sweat, and all, making you feel every mile of the journey. The violence is abrupt and ugly, and camaraderie is rare. What makes it neo-Western? Its devotion to historical accuracy, its bleak worldview, and its refusal to romanticize anything. This is the West as a hard place for hard men, and it doesn't care about your dreams. Overlooked on release but rediscovered by later generations, the Culpeper Cattle Co. stands as a brutal correction to a century of cowboy myth-making. Kid Blue, 1973. Dennis Hopper was born for roles like Bickford Wainer, a.k.a. Kid Blue, a hapless outlaw desperate to go straight, but doomed by his own bad luck and a changing world. Kid Blue is set in a Texas town that's already halfway to modernity. There are factories, telephones, and a sense that the old rules don't apply anymore. The film's tone is offbeat and a little melancholy, blending comedy and existential frustration in equal measure. Hopper's kid tries every honest job in town and fails at all of them, drifting back toward crime not out of malice, but because the world refuses to let him belong. What makes it neo-Western? It's about transition, the end of an era, and the awkward birth of something new. The Western is dying, and all that's left is to laugh at the absurdity of it all. Critics were divided, but Kid Blue is a hidden gem for anyone who loves their Westerns, strange, sad, and full of lost causes. The White Buffalo, 1977. Somewhere between myth and madness lies The White Buffalo, a film that mashes up the Western, the monster movie, and the fever dream. Charles Bronson plays Wild Bill Hickok, tormented by nightmares of a monstrous white buffalo rampaging across the plains. Haunted and half-mad, he teams up with Crazy Horse, his former enemy, to hunt the beast, blurring the line between vengeance, guilt, and redemption. The film is as much about psychological torment as it is about buffalo hunts. Landscapes are icy and surreal, and the characters are chased as much by their pasts as by the creature itself. What makes it neo-Western? Its willingness to throw out realism in favor of allegory, its obsession with the ghosts of the West, and its grim, atmospheric take on the American legend. Critics didn't know what to do with its odd mix of horror and Western, but over time, The White Buffalo found an audience among those who like their myths with a side of nightmare. A Man Called Sledge, 1970. If you think James Garner is always the good guy, think again. In A Man Called Sledge, he's a hardened outlaw drawn into a violent gold heist that quickly spirals into chaos. The story starts off familiar, a gang of misfits plotting to rob a gold shipment, but as betrayals stack up and the bodies fall, the film slips into something much darker. Director Vic Morrow brings the bleak cynicism of spaghetti westerns to the American frontier, stripping away any sense of honor or camaraderie. Garner's Sledge isn't searching for justice. He's just trying to survive in a world where loyalty is a liability. The action is gritty, the moral lines are blurred, and the ending offers no easy answers. What makes this film neo-Western? Its ruthless focus on survival, its lack of sentimentality, and its grim vision of the West as a place where the only rule is don't get caught. Overlooked by mainstream audiences, A Man Called Sledge is a cult classic for those who like their Western meaning and unsentimental. Valdez is Coming 1971. Revenge is an old theme in Westerns, but Valdez is Coming gives it a raw, modern twist. Burt Lancaster plays Bob Valdez, a humble Mexican-American lawman who's framed and left for dead by a powerful rancher. What starts as humiliation turns into a slow-burning campaign for justice, as Valdez arms himself and methodically tracks down those who wronged him. The film digs deep into issues of race, class, and the abuse of power, turning the personal vendetta into a pointed social critique. Lancaster's performance is all quiet intensity, a man who knows that violence is a last resort, but also sometimes the only way to set things right. What makes it neo-Western? The focus on social issues, the lack of black and white morality, and the way vengeance is shown as both destructive and necessary. Valdez is Coming is more than a revenge story. It's a meditation on what justice really means and how far a good man can go before becoming just another outlaw. Shootout, 1971. On paper, Shootout looks like a classic revenge tale. Gregory Peck plays Clay Lomax, a bank robber fresh out of prison and hunting down the partner who betrayed him. But what sets this film apart is the unexpected relationship at its heart. Lomax is saddled with an orphaned girl, and their odd couple journey through the frontier adds depth and warmth to the usual tale of vengeance. Director Henry Hathaway blends hard-edged action with surprising tenderness, refusing to let the violence drown out the film's humanity. Peck's performance is world-weary and soulful, a man torn between the life he left behind and the hope for something better. What makes it neo-Western? Its willingness to complicate the hero's journey, its focus on damaged people finding new purpose, and its unvarnished portrayal of the West as a place where the past always catches up. Shootout might be underrated, but it's proof that even old gunslingers can still surprise you. So, how many of these neo-Western oddities blindsided you? The 70s didn't just kill the Old West, they remixed it, subverted it, and left us with movies that still feel fresh today. Did your favorite make the cut? Or did we miss an outlaw that deserves the spotlight? Drop your wildest picks in the comments, subscribe for more hidden movie gems, and stick around, because the frontier is never as dead as Hollywood wants you to think.